Are foreigners gentrifying Mexico without even realizing it? It's a big question, and one that's becoming harder to ignore.
We've lived in Mexico for a really long time now, and San Miguel de Allende is our home. It's beautiful, it's vibrant, and it's no surprise that so many people fall in love with it just like we did and want to move here.
But San Miguel isn't the only place. From beach towns to big cities to mountain villages, people from the US and Canada are moving to Mexico in record numbers. And it's not just Mexico, this is happening all over the world. And whether they realize it or not, many might be changing things.
Not always intentionally. Most people come here with good intentions. We're looking for a better quality of life, a lower cost of living, maybe even a chance to give back. But some of the everyday habits we bring with us, they can have unintentional consequences.
We came across a story in a local Facebook group recently. Now, we can't verify how accurate it is. It was secondhand. But according to the post, a foreigner living in Mexico had a minor fall and went to a clinic for an x-ray. It cost about 1,400 pesos, which is roughly $70. He was thrilled. Back home, that same visit would have cost 5 times as much.
He even mentioned that the 70 peso taxi to the clinic was so cheap. It was a casual story, but it reveals a bigger issue.
The minimum wage in Mexico is about 280 pesos per day. Now, that's under 14 US dollars a day. That affordable x-ray, that taxi ride, for many people earning in pesos, those are serious expenses. For some, it's simply out of reach. I just talked to a guy at our local supermarket that works in the parking lot. Now, parking lot attendants at supermarkets are not employed by the supermarkets. They live off of the tips that they make, pushing carts and helping people's bags into their cars. And I asked him, how much do you make in one day? And he said, 200 pesos, and on a good day, 250 pesos. So for this guy, paying 1,400 pesos for an x-ray, it's probably
impossible.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't do it.
So while one person celebrates how cheap something is, and I say cheap, another person might be reminded of how excluded they are from those same services.
And honestly, we get it. When you've spent most of your life in a country where healthcare costs are high, moments like this feel like a win. You want to share it. It feels like you've hacked the system.
But here's the thing. Mexico isn't a discounted version of somewhere else. It's a place with its own economy, its own struggles. When you see it only through the lens of what we used to pay, we miss the bigger picture.
And this happens in other ways too. Someone might say, wow, I got my teeth cleaned for 600 pesos. That's like 30 bucks, so cheap. Or my Mexico City rent is so cheap. I'm renting a beautiful apartment for $1,500 a month. We've seen this on social media actually. That might sound like a great deal for someone living in LA or New York.
But for a local family trying to find housing on a modest income, that price isn't just high. It can push them out of the neighborhood entirely, especially when landlords start targeting wealthier tenants. That excitement about a deal makes sense, but if you're not careful, it can come across as tone deaf, even if that's not the intention.
Now, imagine you're a local taxi driver. You're earning in pesos, your rent just went up, the fuel costs are rising, but you've got a customer who earns in dollars, tips extra, and treats waiting time like it's nothing.
That dynamic shifts things. It creates pressure. It starts to change how people prioritize their work and who they serve. It starts to influence who gets picked up first when both a local or a foreigner are flagging you down, and you might be tempted to charge more.
There's nothing wrong with appreciating affordability, but context matters. When we understand the reality behind the price tag, we become more mindful about how we talk, how we tip, and how we interact.
This isn't just about medical costs. It's a pattern we see all over Mexico. Foreigners comparing everything to prices back home. Meals, dental visits, cleaning services. I mean, we do this too. We're guilty of this. It's impossible not to compare costs. We've even done videos about that.
And calling everything cheap might feel like a compliment, but it often lands wrong. Behind that cheap meal is someone cooking with care. Behind the affordable house, a local who might no longer afford to live in their own neighborhood.
And we get it. When something costs a fraction of what you would pay in the US or Canada, it feels like you've stumbled on a secret, but the words we use really matter.
We often hear guests at our inn and around town say, I love Mexico, everything is so cheap. That word cheap can feel dismissive, even when it's not meant to be.
last weekend we had some guests and she was telling us how she had gone to this very high-end hotel terrace bar and ordered a cocktail. The cocktail was like 180 pesos or so, which is about $9. And she was saying how cheap it was because in New York, that drink would cost her over $20. And I was thinking to myself, as people who live here, 180 pesos for a cocktail is expensive.
Very expensive.
Like, yeah. That's a lot. It's a lot to certain people, and to other people, it's cheap. It's the difference between intention and impact. Most people aren't trying to be disrespectful. They're excited, they're surprised, even grateful. But when we reduce someone's labor or culture to a discount, we unintentionally devalue it.
Imagine somebody walking into your hometown saying, "Wow, everything here is so cheap." Would that feel like a compliment to you or a little condescending?
We've heard people rave about how cheap it is to have a housekeeper or a gardener, but for many locals, that's hard work, often underpaid, often overlooked.
For example, we've seen on local groups here, people often talking about how much to pay their housekeeper or their gardener for a couple of hours worth of work. And a lot of people wouldn't even blink twice about paying them 500 pesos or 400 pesos for an hour or two worth of work. But what does that do? That all of a sudden, somebody that's coming to your house to clean your house is making more than what a school teacher makes in San Miguel, or even a police officer.
Or someone who works at a bank, a professional who went to college.
Yeah. You know, school teachers, for example, make about 16,000 pesos a month. The San Miguel police officers make 30,000 pesos a month. And so when you're paying your housekeeper 500 pesos, because that's only $25 and it seems very inexpensive to you, you're really putting everything out of whack. All of a sudden, that school teacher might not teach school anymore and go clean people's homes, and the kids are left without a qualified school teacher.
It just puts the ecosystem out of whack completely when foreigners come and overpay for services and over tip for services. It makes it harder for the locals then to find employees because they no longer want to work for the locals, they only want to work for foreigners.
And these words ripple out. When tourists and newcomers repeat the same phrases, it starts to shape how locals feel about their own work, their communities, and about us.
And also, when foreigners overpay for services, then the next time you have the plumber come or you have the electrician come, the prices get higher and higher and higher and higher, depending on what your house looks like. And so you end up paying even more than you should because someone else was being generous and overpaid for a service or over-tipped. And now everyone is overpaying for the service. A better way to say it is, this meal was delicious. It was so reasonably priced, or even just what a great value. And even better to say, thank you for the delicious meal. It still shows appreciation without reducing it to a bargain.
Again, it's not about guilt, it's about awareness. When we understand the power of our words, we can be more respectful, more connected, and more mindful of the impact that we have.
Tipping is a big one. In the US, 20% or more is the norm now. So a lot of people bring that with them to Mexico. Since prices are lower than what they're used to, they tip 25, even 30% or more, thinking that they're being generous. And it makes sense. When you're earning in dollars and meals here cost less, it feels easy to go big on tips.
And look, we know that tipping more comes from a good place. It feels like a way to show appreciation, to give back. But in Mexico, the standard tip at restaurants is 10% and 15% for exceptional service. And when foreigners consistently tip much more, it starts to shift expectations. And the locals earning Mexican wages, they simply can't afford to match that. So they continue to leave the customary 10%.
So what happens? Workers begin to focus on tourists or the foreign people that live here. They know where the bigger tips are coming from. Over time, prices creep up and locals earning in pesos, they get left behind.
We've seen this play out in San Miguel. Restaurants that were once casual and local now cater almost exclusively to people with bigger budgets. And local families celebrating birthdays might get overlooked, while tourists get the VIP treatment.
And this isn't just about restaurants. The same thing happens with other services such as taxis, house cleaning, electricians, plumbers. It isn't customary to tip for these services, but tips from foreigners can unintentionally create pressure for locals to match them, even if it's just not sustainable.
And for workers, it can change their priorities. If most of their income now comes from foreign tips, who do you think they're going to cater to?
We've seen this firsthand with plumbers and electricians who come do work at our house. They've become so accustomed to getting more money from the foreigners that their prices go up and up and up.
That shift affects community dynamics and the overall sense of belonging.
Again, it's not about stopping generosity because that's not what we're saying. It's about being thoughtful. Tipping well is great, especially when someone goes above and beyond. But it helps to understand the local norms before redefining them.
A good approach, start by asking locals what's considered fair. You can still tip extra when you feel moved to, but doing so with context helps avoid creating unintended inequality.
Because at the end of the day, generosity isn't just about money, it's about respect. What's happening here in San Miguel is a microcosm of what's happening all over Mexico and many parts of the world. Two economies are forming side by side, one for those earning in dollars and one for everyone else.
And the gap between them, well, it's growing. Locals are being priced out of their own neighborhoods, their favorite restaurants, and even everyday necessities, while visitors often don't realize the role they're playing in that shift.
We're not saying don't spend money, we're not saying don't tip, and we're definitely not saying don't enjoy what Mexico has to offer.
But we are saying be thoughtful, be aware, look beyond the surface, and try to understand the full picture.
Because when you see both realities, the one we live in and the one others are navigating, we can move through this place with more humility, more connection, and a lot more care.
So, what can we actually do about all this? It starts with small, intentional choices. First, think in pesos. Get to know exactly what things cost locally. Tip fairly, not excessively. And remember, showing appreciation doesn't always mean leaving a big number.
Second, choose your words carefully. Instead of saying something is cheap, try affordable, accessible, or just say thank you. That small shift shows respect for the value behind what someone just offered.
And finally, respect the ecosystem. If you love living in Mexico, live like you're a part of it. Ask questions. Learn the customs, support local businesses, not just the ones with Instagrammable storefronts or familiar international names, but the ones who have been serving the community for generations.
Because being thoughtful isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. When we take the time to understand the culture we're stepping into, we create deeper connections, not just better deals.
At the end of the day, most people come to Mexico because we love it. The culture, the beauty, the people.
And when you love something, you take care of it, you listen, you learn, you give back in ways that help, not harm.
Living abroad is a privilege, not just because of the lower costs, but because we're guests in somebody else's home, and how we show up matters.
This country has welcomed so many people with open arms. And if we plan to stay for the long haul, it's on us to be good guests, to show up with humility, with curiosity, with respect.
Because Mexico isn't just a place to stretch your dollar. It's a place full of history, hard work, generosity, and pride. It's not a bargain. It's someone's home. Let's treat it that way.
Thanks for watching, everybody, and let's keep learning together.